working with a lot of females. Some who have major brain problems, others who have, not as bad brain problems. And I have some females where lawyers wouldn't classify it as physical abuse, but we do the brain map and we take a look and we see how stressed, how damaged the brain is. We see how locked up in a state of stress it is. And then the woman comes in, she has memory issues, vision issues, can't even hear, almost deaf, from becoming like a cocoon of herself from the emotional stress in a relationship. And there's some important differences I'm going to tell you in a sec about the female brain. But women, you can't underestimate the effects of emotional stress. The female brain's way more sensitive. It's just like female concussions. Different ballgame than male concussions. Big time. So, there's some key differences about female-male brain we're going to get into right now. And I am a guy, and I do want to apologize. We do have ADD, squirrel phenomenon. And guys, our brains are literal. We really can only think of one thing at a time. And we usually only think of 3 things, which are 1, food and drink. Number 2, sports. 3, sex. Am I right? Yeah. Greg's nodding his head. I'm looking for the cue. Greg's nodding his head. It's true, ladies. And ladies, we also have these compartments in our brain. Guys, little things. We have like the work box. We have the sports box. We have the sex box. And we have the nothing box. So sometimes, ladies, there's really nothing going on in our brain. I'm not kidding. We're really that smart. And the thing is, ladies, when you guys are talking to us, you mean exactly what you say, right? No. And guys, we're not that smart. And we're not very good detectives. Which is why there could be the cute girl on the other side, and she could be looking away, and, twirling her hair, and the guy would be like, damn, she's not interested. She's not even looking at me. When really, she's just dying. Oh, please come over. Please come over. So there's some really key differences between the male and female brain. So for males have much more testosterone and dopamine, which heightens mood, motivation, and causes the brain to lock in, narrow, focusly on one task. Which is why, ladies, if you have men in your life, and he, seems narrow-minded, closed-minded, and unable to see other options and perspectives, am I right? Guys, can get pretty locked in, pretty stubborn, right? That's because their brain's higher in dopamine. Now, this makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Guys, hone in on food. Food, come home, bring the bacon home, honey. You know what I mean? Now, females have much more sensitive brains. Females are much more attuned and connected to others. Now, the female brain is much higher in serotonin. Serotonin is a neurotransmitter that opens up the brain to forming new pathways, new behaviors, new thoughts, new perspectives. This is why mind-altering drugs, like psychoactive drugs, flood the brain with serotonin and increase brain plasticity, basically heightening your awareness, shutting down ego-centered sense of self, like deep, deep meditation, basically opening you up to more oneness and connectivity with others. Now, the thing is, it's all about the balance, because for guys, if you have too much testosterone, too much dopamine, and not enough oxytocin and serotonin, you can be a cold, arrogant, inconsiderate asshole. There. A few nods, a few experiences. So number 1, but the thing is, ladies, you also can be very indecisive. Back and forth. This, no, this top, no, this top. No, let's do this, no, let's do this. Because dopamine is what locks the brain onto a solution, locks the brain onto a pattern. But the thing is, guys get very stuck in their ways, very rigid, because their brains have a lot of dopamine, so they keep doing more and more and more of what they want. And then they see something they like, and they lock onto that. Which is great if it's, working and making money. It's not so great if it's, their secretary or something. Example. So the number 2 thing, so dopamine. You want to have dopamine so you can focus in on one thing. The number 2 is serotonin for the neuroflexibility. so that you can open your brain up to new targets, new perspectives, new behaviors. Does that make sense? Okay, so the number one things to raise dopamine, let's just get into it right now. We said the AM sunlight, okay? So 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. is the most important thing. Movement. Ladies, if you're not on an exercise regimen, you gotta get on some form of exercise regimen. You gotta move around. Those beautiful bodies were meant to move and groove. Are you with me? Yeah. Yeah? So what, you guys working out? You guys work out even if it's movement? Any form of movement, because for Parkinson's, it's simply walking really fast to stimulate the brain. So even walking really fast, and then being out in nature is really important. And now, another thing about the female brain which you have to know, and the main reason why females have less room for error is because the female brain is less myelinated, meaning it has less of the protection around the nerves, meaning it's more sensitive to environmental stressors. So, if there's changes in the environment, new electromagnetic frequencies which are just growing and growing exponentially, like, technology, female brain and body is going to be most sensitive. So who gets higher rates of autoimmunity, males or females? Females. So they're more sensitive, right? Now think about the female, if it's the mother, during pregnancy is low in dopamine in this state of stress. That signal gets sent to the developing fetus. Because guess what, ladies? There's a thing called a mitochondria in our cell. Heard of a mitochondria? Yeah, the energy producing power plant? Well, yeah, it produces energy. Well, the instructions, the manual for us to produce more mitochondria, and the most mitochondria in the brain, the heart, and the immune system, which is why whenever there's an energy problem, there's a brain problem, heart problem, or immune problem, like cancer, autoimmunity. Now, the instructions for making new mitochondria, the mitochondrial DNA, guess what, ladies? They are 100% inherited from the mother because the transmission has to be perfect. No daddy interaction, straight from mom, Mother Nature. So, the woman's energy producing capacity, her health, leading up to pregnancy, during pregnancy, is the biggest number one signal to the developing fetus brain. Now, why do you guys got to pay attention when I say dopamine's important? Well, when dopamine is low, it leads to increased protein turnover. Whenever there's increased turnover, there's more likelihood of copying errors. So the more stressed you are, the more cells have to turn over and deplete, your telomeres. They get turned over. And the more cells turn over, the more prevalence there are of copying errors, of mutations. And guess what happens when that happens? The proteins start getting misshapen. Case in point, Alzheimer's. Parkinson's. Hello, and if it's happening to the mom with a pregnant kid, autism. So the number one thing for women is relaxing, melting the stress away, and you'll watch the waste go away. Now, laughing's fantastic, dear. Keep laughing. Keep laughing. Laughing releases endorphins, which help to relax your brain and body. And guess what? When you're relaxed, dear, all your hormones, which are built from LDL cholesterol, get converted to pregnenolone. When you're relaxed, that pregnenolone goes all the way to all those juicy anti-aging steroids like testosterone, like progesterone, which is progestational, DHEA, the memory hormone, and vitamin D. Now, when you're stressed, and traffic cop is stressed, when you're stressed, all that LDL cholesterol goes to cortisol.
It goes into weight. Yeah.
It goes right on your waist, my dear. So you can be eating any diet if you want. As long as that mind's still monkeying stress, that weight is sticking. Which is why women reach a plateau. Because they think, oh, I got to eat less, oh, I got to eat less. So the body will adapt and you'll shed the first 10 pounds. But then, to go to the next level, you got to turn into a fat-burning machine. Which means you have to get the whole operation from LDL cholesterol to pregnenolone, going all the way to the sex steroids. Because when you have the sex steroids good, then you can eat as much as you want and keep burning. Now, there's some key things which you have to know.